Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know about you all, but I'm actually getting a little sad because it sounds like we're at day 3 of the Emerging Engineering Summit here at CodePath, EES 2024. I'm your host, Bobby D, and this morning I got a special one for you because I think we got a CEO for a company that y'all be using the platform all the time, and you're going to get some really cool insights. But before we jump into that, let me first tell you, day number 1, day number 2, if you missed it, I don't know where you was at. I mentioned it yesterday. You better have a good excuse. And remember, all of the sessions that we recorded, or all of the sessions prior, have been recorded, including this one coming up. There are some logistic things that I just want to talk to you all about just really quick. So first of all, I want to say thank you all for coming to our last day here at the Emergent Engineers Summit at CodePath. We have more chances for you to network with your fellow peers. Remember, networking and connecting, it's going to be your net worth. So make sure you remember that, right? And another set of breakout sessions by Google, Warner Brothers, and Shell Games, and more. This afternoon, we'll also have 3 hours of opportunities for you to connect with companies in their booth. But right now, it's time for us to move into our last conversation, our last keynote for the summit. Like I said, I'm getting a little sad, but yeah, y'all see me come back up a little bit more. We're thrilled to be hosting a conversation with Vivek Ravisankar, the CEO of Hackerrank. Yeah, I said it, of Hackerrank. And our very own co-founder here at CodePath, Tim Lee. Vivek and Tim will be discussing AI and the evolution of software engineering. I hope that this closeout keynote session leaves you ready to leave a mark on our industry. So thank you again for joining us. You'll see me a little bit later for questions and answers, but let me have Vivek and Tim come to the stage. Give them a round of applause. Welcome, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Bobby. Really happy to be here, everyone. We have a great session prepared for you, and I think that we want to make it as concrete for you as possible. So this is going to be hopefully very actionable, very insightful, and of course, we are very pleased to have Vivek speaking with us. I want to see if we can get, this is the last keynote. Let's get some chat going. Can 100% of us say hello in the chat? It's on about a 20-second delay for us. So, we'll see. We won't be able to respond instantly, but we want to, get it there. So if we could just like slam a hi, a hello in the chat, let's just get some activity going in here. And then what I'd like you to say is, have you interviewed before? Yes or no? Have you interviewed before? Yes or no? I know that some of us are kind of like pre a technical interview, some of us are post technical interview. So we're going to have a great conversation today. The topics that we're going to hit that I think will be really interesting is, how is AI impacting software engineering careers? For example, I mean, hey, will we even need engineers anymore? Or maybe we do, but we'll just need a lot less. Or maybe even the reverse, there'll actually be even more. Maybe everyone will be an engineer because you just kind of guide around this AI coder to do the work, and you kind of instruct it verbally. So we're going to talk about like what that evolution looks like and what that means for you. We're going to talk about how AI is evolving the skill set of engineers. So what skill sets aren't going to be as relevant anymore, and what new skills will be necessary. I think this is really important because is it fair to say that your schools, as wonderful as they are, it's hard for them to keep up. So it's kind of up to you to track this so that when you leave, you're as prepared as possible. And then finally, we're going to talk about how this impacts interviewing and your interview prep, right? Because like we've been doing it the same way for a long time now. Actually, literally, believe it or not, 20 years ago, people were asking the same questions of engineers that they're asking for you today. That tells you how like static that is. So I think that's finally shifting though. So those are the topics and that we're gonna like touch on. But before we dive into that, I want to bring Vivek onto the stage. Um, Vivek, as you know, is CEO of Hackerrank. Hackerrank actually started about 13 years ago as a YC company. Since then, they've raised over $100 million. They are deeply widespread, and they have a lot of insight on what companies are looking for in interviews. So, Vivek, before we kind of dive into our conversation, I'd love to get to invite you to share your personal background a little bit. Like, can you bring us back to when you were a college student? like our audience is today up until, where you are now?
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Tim, and thank you, CodePath team, for inviting me. Super excited to be here. Super excited to be talking to all of you. Yeah, 13 years. I've never really counted. It does feel long. I certainly feel old because it's how long since it has been since I graduated. I just a little bit of background on me. I am I'm 36 years old. I came to the Bay Area about 12, 13 years ago for the Y Combinator. Prior to that, I was born and brought up in India, grew up in India, went to college in India, um, and I studied computer science. And right after that, I got a job at Amazon, again, back in India. I worked at Amazon for a year and I got an opportunity to interview people as well as shadow people who are interviewing. And when I was doing all of these technical interviews, I realized that resumes did not have a great correlation to your skills, which means I had interviewed people who looked really good on your resume, but completely bombed the interview, and vice versa. So something was wrong. Something felt off on just putting so much trust on a piece of paper. So that was the motivation for us to start the company, to put skills over pedigree. And it's been a core ethos of us from the start until now. And we started with a simple product called Screen, which allows companies to build take-home challenges, which a lot of you might have attended or attempted it, and and really understand and interview people on skills based on the code that they write as opposed to what's present in a piece of paper. So that's how we got started. But then over time, we realized that this whole skills over pedigree can be applied to every aspect of the lifecycle journey of a developer, whether how you prepare for your job, how you get hired, how you continue to upskill yourself once you join an organization internally. And yeah, now we're building a whole suite of products across the entire developer lifecycle, all based on this. And it's taken 13 years. It feels a lot. I think we should have done this in 5, but here we are.
you know, that's an interesting story. And one thing that's interesting is like, audience, correct me if I'm wrong, but working at Amazon, I mean, that's the brass ring. I mean, that's something that a lot of us are working for, working really hard. I remember, striving for that, back in my day. And that was just that was kind of the end goal. And you had it and you were there. And yeah, I get that you saw this problem, but like what made you get off that track? Because that's the track that we were a lot of us are hoping to get onto.
Yeah, this is very nostalgic because this is the exact conversation that I had with my mom, who said the same thing. Why are you quitting Amazon? That's what everybody wants to get into. Why do you want to do this? I mean, they were certainly very supportive. I will just tell you, so I started this with my co-founder. His name is Hari. We went to the same college, and he was working at IBM. So I quit Amazon, he quit IBM. And frankly, the thought was very simple. Look, we're just like 22, 23-year-old guys, single, living in a very small apartment, super low burn rate. So why don't we just try this out for 2 years? If it takes off, great. If it doesn't, what's there to lose? Like, you can always go back to Amazon or IBM or like one of the companies and get going. So there was nothing really to lose and everything was upside with a very low burn. And yeah, that was it. And so we just jumped in and wanted to test this out.
And you're only a year into your career. So basically you're only just at that time a couple of years older than the audience now. And so what made you think that you could start a company? Like I get that you're like, okay, I get the risk analysis, but like how did you even know? How did you even know that you would be able to do this? Did you have any insight? Because you're in India too. You're not in Silicon Valley where you're surrounded by,
Yeah.
hundreds or thousands of like founders doing the same thing. Like how did you have the knowledge of, that you would be able to do this?
You know, naivete and ignorance is a bliss. If I actually, I think somebody asked this to Jensen from NVIDIA, and he gave a very honest response, which I was very surprised by, in the sense that, given how good NVIDIA is doing, somebody asked him like, hey, if you knew everything about how hard it is to build a company like NVIDIA, would you have actually started it? And he said, probably not. And this is NVIDIA, which is like right now the hottest company in the planet. And yes, it's probably it's probably very, very similar in the sense that if I knew how hard it was, I don't know if I would have really started the company. But all we thought was, okay, all you need is to just like put up a product, buy a domain, put it on the web, have a pricing page. People will swipe their credit cards, they will start to buy the product. And I mean, like, how hard can it be? And of course, it turns out to be much harder. But like once you jump in, you've jumped into the whirlpool. It's just going to continue to you just have to continue to learn, continue to update, and you're caught in that.
Yeah, I'm sure that you have a million war stories of going through YC and the learning how to raise rounds and growing to your scale. But let's actually now shift. Let's talk about AI and let's talk about how you're seeing the evolution of AI. Maybe let's make it personal for now. Let's talk about like the Hackerrank engineering team and how you yourselves are using like what is the before and after of your day in the life of an engineer kind of like a year ago compared to today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if I think about if I think about like the job of a developer, I think it's well encapsulated in this concept called SDLC, the software development life cycle, and it has 6 stages. You gather requirements on what you need to do. You design your system. You write code. You test your code. You deploy the code, and you maintain. Like I mean, like those are the 6 things, and that's like the task of a developer or the job of a developer. But what you see happening is a lot of these jobs have what I call as like schlep tasks, like things that you have to do, but you don't really like doing. And you either grudgingly do it, but a majority of the developers don't even do it. And that's the reality. For example, writing documentation for your code is a schlep task, like, but most people actually don't really do a great job at it. Writing test cases and coverage is an important one, but it's always like, oh, the QA team will take care of it, or my code is so good that I don't need to write test cases and things of those lines. So you constantly are ignoring parts of your job, which I think you're supposed to do, but you're not doing because it has like a lot of the grunt work present there, or reviewing other person's code. Man, like, why do I have to review this like really poorly written code and things of those lines? So we actually looked at all of these what you can consider as the toil that is present in the software development and see how much AI can really help make this better. The two big shifts has been our own internal AI agents for writing test cases and for reviewing code. We actually trained on our own rubric, on our own code base to actually say, hey, this is what we consider as a good quality code. This is how you need to give comments on the pull request. And so today, every pull request is first reviewed by this AI agent, and then the developer actually goes and fixes it before you actually hand it over to your peer reviewer. And it's first off, you're able to just your cycle time is really fast, because if I give pull request to you, I don't know if you're going to be online right now. I have to wait for a day and things of the science. So the cycle time is dramatically quick because I'm able to get like comments faster, and you're actually able to do the actual job that a software developer needs to do. So I think that's been a big shift. So the code has gotten better quality. It's gotten more robust because like you're using AI agent to generate and write test cases, and people are just like more productive, but importantly, people are happier. So if you're productive and happy, that seems like a magic drug that you want to take on. So that's been the before and the after.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point because, this is gonna be a crowd interaction moment. So I'm gonna ask the crowd a question,
Sure.
which is, how many lines of code do you think a professional software engineer with a decade of training writes a day? So write in the chat, how many lines of code do you think a professional software engineer writes in a day? I mean, they're seasoned, they've been doing it for a long time. What do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think that number is? So I think Vivek probably knows where I'm going. I think that stat that's been shared publicly is something like less than 10 lines of code a day, something like
Yeah.
7 lines of code a day. And there's good reasons for that because, like, hey, actually the job of an engineer is a lot more than coding. It's requirements, it's system design, it's testing, it's debugging, it's engagement, it's collaboration. But also there is a lot of schlep work in engineering. You have 10% of your brain, is your high-end work, and then you do a lot of water carrying,
Yeah.
to get to do the stuff. So let me ask you a pointed question, Vivek, then. Now that you have this great efficiency and the schlep work is being cut in half, are you going to let go of half the HackerRank engineering team?
I don't know if the Hackerrank team is watching. So if they're watching, no, the answer is no. There is an interesting principle in economics. It's called the lump of labor fallacy. And I think that is probably the best encapsulation of what I think will likely happen. It's a fancy term for saying that your demand will always continue to grow, um, which is human beings will never be satisfied with what you have. So you had taxis, and then like you said, like, oh, I want to push a button and I have to get a car in front of me. And then now you said like, oh no, I want to push a button and I want to get like a SUV. Oh, I want to push a button. Why is it taking 7 minutes? It should come in 2 minutes. And your needs never get satiated, and that's like a good thing, because we're serving to humanity. So human beings' needs are never satiated. So if your demand is always going to continuously change, you are going to continue to build more and more new things. And you go and ask any company, any engineering team, they have like a backlog of like 1,000 items that they've never been able to get to because they just don't have time to work through. So I think you're going to only get more. You're going to be able to do more things. And I don't. I think in a world where if you think your demand is constrained, I think this makes sense. Okay, my pie is fixed. My engineers are twice as productive, so I only need half. But when you can actually make the pie bigger, then you have the argument, actually you have the counter argument to say, maybe I need to hire more because now I can actually do more. There's like the possibilities are endless. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think another way of saying it, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is I think if your engineers can do more work, there's more money to be made for HackerRank. I think there's more the revenue that can be increased if you can do more. And I think the customer expectations are also rising. So that if you don't do those things too, another company might come in and be the next HackerRank and kind of eat your lunch. Like, remember when BlackBerry was omnipresent and everyone had a BlackBerry? And then
Yeah.
they kind of got sleepy and they got, complacent, and then now, who knows where who knows where they are.
Yeah.
So that's
I think there's one aspect in terms of certainly being more productive and doing more. Then there's the other aspect of like, hey, what are all the things that were not possible before that are possible right now with AI? And let me actually give you a very concrete example with HackerRank. So today, when you think about somebody writing code on HackerRank, we automatically evaluate and run it against a set of test cases and give you like a score and output and things in those lines. But with AI, now you can actually go ahead and we've actually done this training an agent where it's actually able to go ahead and like look at the code and even say, how close was this candidate to the actual answer? So now you're actually, I mean, our one of the core values and principle for us, it's a core value for the company is developer first. We want to always showcase the best version of the developer. So sometimes when you actually are going to give like a very binary kind of a score, hey, this is 25 out of 50 or like 40 out of 50, it's very hard to determine how close was this person. Sure, yeah, you were 25 points off, but is it like one for loop away? Is it like one small optimization away? How do you actually determine that? But now an AI agent can literally look at a code and be able to say, yeah, this is how close you were. And that's like a new kind of possibility that was not even possible before. That's going to add more value to customers and help showcase developers in their best version. So there's one aspect in terms of becoming more productive from an output perspective. And there's a whole other aspect of like new things that were not possible that you're able to do right now.
And the way you're describing the way your engineers are using AI, it's the visual that I have is like, okay, before the engineer, had say 80% schlep work and 20% like high intellect kind of like work. And then you're also saying, well, and there were just some things that were just like plain impossible, right? And now hey, I have this thing. And so the vision here is like it's kind of like an Iron Man vision where like Tony Stark is working with Jarvis and there's this like partnership, and
Yeah.
so in that vision, you need the human and the AI. But just to pursue this line, are we going to a world where you don't need the human, where you don't need the Tony Stark and you just have the Jarvis? And in that case, Hackerrank can go and, explore these things with only the AI agents. Like, when is that world arriving?
Yeah, there are a lot of possibilities. Lot of possibilities. I'll say maybe like two things. One is it's very hard to imagine what we don't have, or what are the new things that we can actually create in the future with technology. Um, and so every time when we think about jobs, every time when we think about work, we always think about from in the current context of the world. When there are like going to be completely new things that are possible, that's just going to open up a whole set of different types of jobs or different types of work. So again, when we think about predicting the future, it's always like in the current context, if there's a new technology comes, what's going to happen? Yes, there's going to be disruption, but like, you also don't know what's going to be the new ones. The second thing that I wanted to say is we've actually seen this play out in one of the professions that a lot of you might be familiar with, which is the airline industry. If you trace the evolution of aviation and like the composition of the cockpit, it started with four people. You had a pilot, you had a co-pilot, you had a navigator, you had a flight engineer. This was the composition like 60 years ago. And as AI started to get better and better, or it was called machine learning back then, you didn't need the navigator. You had the pilot, you had the co-pilot, you had the flight engineer. And then AI continued to get better. Then you had the pilot and the co-pilot. And today you have the pilot and the co-pilot, but in reality, 80% of the flight is really flown by AI. And the pilot and co-pilot really do the takeoff and the landing and like any other things in the middle. But this hasn't really reduced the demand for pilots. This hasn't reduced the need for them to know the fundamentals of aeronautical engineering. But this has absolutely changed their jobs. But now that AI is becoming mainstream, because nobody has really flown, or not a lot of people have really flown planes, and you don't have access to cockpits and stuff. But now AI is mainstream. It's on your iPhone. It's on your app. Open up ChatGPT, you have access to AI. So now that AI is mainstream, you're going to see this kind of a human plus AI transformation happen in every industry. And you're seeing that in co-pilots with developers. You're seeing that in customer support with like agents included in your support tools. So yeah, you're going to see a similar kind of a transition like what the pilots have gone through in all these professions. With an asterisk, there might be some professions that may not exist or might look completely different with AI. And yeah, we need to navigate through this. What I don't probably subscribe to, and it's just like my own thing, is this whole super intelligence that will just like come and rule humanity, rule the world, and we'll just be out of jobs and we just don't lose purpose in life and things of those lines. Not really. I'm not a subscriber of that.
I agree. I think that could be 100 plus years away, or more, maybe 1,000 years away. And I'll answer my own question, which is like I think that you're right. Your vision of like this evolving role, and this partnership between humans and AI will continue for a long time. And I think that the takeaway here I want to capture, for audiences, I think your careers are safe. Your careers are there. But to Vivek's point, and this will be our next transition, it's going to look different than Vivek and my
Yeah.
career and the way that we worked. And the pilots of tomorrow, and UI, we sometimes call this crowd the first generation of AI native coders.
Yeah.
And so can we talk about that shift? Because in what people may not realize is that this is not the first time that skill sets shift. Software engineering, because it's actually a very young and dynamic field, there are things that you had to do 20 years ago that you don't have to do now. And there's been a change in certain skill sets. So like now with this new world of human AI coding, what skills are kind of, because the skills is stack rank, right? So what skills are like drifting down in the list of like the essentials, and what new skills are being added in order for you to be an effective, AI coder?
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to compartmentalize. So maybe I'll just uh, try to think about it in like three different buckets. The first one is um, I'll talk about like how the AI native engineers build things differently. So one of the observations has been, let's say if you're going to go ahead and get started on a project or something, prior to AI, you're literally going to write code as your first thing. Okay, I'm going to like go ahead and start building this to-do app or whatever thing that you want to go ahead and build, or a weather app application. Those are like some of the canonical examples. Today, your first line of code in quotes, is not the actual programming language code. It's really a natural language. Your first thing is like it's an interaction with an AI saying, look, this is what I want to build. This is the spec. Give me the scaffolding. And then like I'll go ahead and edit based on that. That's very, very different mentality, like on how you're even beginning a project. And then you have the superpower intern, at least right now, who can potentially be very, very smart over time, the AI copilot, where you're just like constantly interacting. It's like literally pair programming in as you're starting to build the project. So the way that you're starting the project, the way that you're continuing to build the project is completely different, and very, very different from what it used to be in the non-AI native engineers, for lack of a better term. So that's like one big shift. The second one, which I think we all need to be careful, is again, if you were to trace the evolution of programming languages, you started with assembly, where you literally had to say, like, move this from this memory register to that memory register, and you literally had to program like moving from one thing to another. And then like things got more and better abstraction over time. Like COBOL was an abstraction on it. Then you had like C++, C and C++. Then you had Python, which almost sort of like resembled natural language. And you actually see all of these technologies getting stacked one over the other. There was a programming language thing. Then there was a cloud thing. Right now, like everybody is probably using AWS or GCP or one of the cloud services. You don't need you don't need knowledge of distributed systems to actually go ahead and deploy the app, because it's abstracted away from you. So AI is also going to abstract a lot of things from you. And there's probably a little bit of a risk, because the more you abstract away, the more you can get away with not knowing the fundamentals. But when you really need it, it's going to like come and like really hurt you. So that's something that we need to like really think about, which is why, interestingly, going back to the pilots, the interview process of pilots to test their aeronautical engineering, the fundamentals of aeronautical engineering, has not changed over the last 40 years, regardless of how much the AI technology has actually evolved, because you do need to know the fundamentals. What if the AI doesn't work? Like, how are you going to actually navigate? So you do need to like make that happen. So the second one is, you are going to work at a higher degree of abstraction. Your job will be more of like reviewing code and things of the science, as opposed to writing, in terms of the split of the time. But be careful to not lose the fundamentals. And the third one is, I also think this is actually going to generally give rise to more people who can actually build things. I know so many people who really wanted to build things, but who just got very intimidated with a black screen and a blinking cursor, also known as terminal. What am I going to do it? And then like you write your first program, it gives like a cryptic dependency error. You can't even do this. So a lot of people actually just like gave up. Like, I don't know how to actually build it. But you're going to get a lot of people to fall in love with programming, because AI is actually going to make it easier. Think about the number of video or filmmakers YouTube and iPhone has created. If you have an iPhone and you have an internet connection, you can actually make a short movie and put it on YouTube. You're now a filmmaker. So you don't need to go and study a course in LA or whatever, and like to become, maybe if you want to become Steven Spielberg, maybe you need to, but like you can become a filmmaker with an iPhone and a YouTube. So think about like how many such engineers AI can actually go ahead and create. So I think all of these things of the AI native way of starting a project and continuing is going to change. You're going to work at a different level of abstraction, but be careful not to miss out on the fundamentals. And I think overall, it's just going to create more engineers. So that's how I imagine the landscape to shift.
Yeah, and a couple things I'm hearing out of that. It's like, well, one, it's not like your CS degree is total garbage. You should still pay attention to your fundamentals. You'll need that when, AI fails you and you're like, it does something and you're like, oh, I bet there's a Stack Overflow, or I bet there's such and such thing going on, or a race condition. But you're kind of adding onto the skill of saying, hey, the interactions can be different. You said you used the word natural language, which kind of means for many of us English. In other words, you're going to be coding not in Python, but you're going to be coding in English. And a lot of you are thinking, oh, fantastic. I already know English. Like, I'm good to go. But okay, this is another crowd interaction moment, right? So, speaking to designing an AI in the way that Vivek is saying is something that a seasoned engineer can do. Because, like, believe it or not, despite our reputation, engineers are actually amazing communicators when they're at that kind of like 20-year level. They're actually really good writers, really good communicators of architecture. So here's the crowd interaction kind of like challenge to you to illustrate how hard this is. Think about a project that you've worked on in the last year. Just any coding project, any school project, something that you can kind of pull it up in your head, visualize it. And what I want you to do is type in the chat a sentence summarizing the architecture of your program. So I'm going to let you do that challenge. So like pull up, in your brain the project that you've worked on, and then try to make a really great recap of the architecture. Go ahead and type it in. And I think maybe the point that I'm trying to illustrate is that that's actually really hard to do. Maybe it sounds easy, and maybe some of you are slamming it out, and it's actually brilliant. In which case, hey, you're way ahead of the curve. But I talked to a lot of engineering managers. I asked them, hey, what's the biggest weakness of your engineering team? And they said, well, they can code. They get the code working, but they kind of like point at the code and grunt is literally what he said. And this is an engineering manager at Stripe, which is a great company. And so it just tells you like today's early engineers actually don't have the English speaking, like the language skills that Vivek is talking about is actually really hard. And it takes time and intentional practice to develop. So I guess Vivek, like, what would you do if you were back in college? Like, how would you, because, like, once again, like, how do I practice that? How do I balance that? What do I do practically? Because my classes aren't necessarily going to teach me to do that. So I'm going to focus on my classes and make sure I know the fundamentals. But then what would you do now, especially if you have to delete your knowledge and experience too?
Yeah.
And then how would you kind of like, what would you do as a student to kind of make sure that you're starting to muscle up on this skill?
Yeah. I think there are two key aspects, and I think one of them you touched upon, which is, hey, when the AI goes rogue or does not give you the right answer, you need to have a very strong understanding of the fundamentals to be able to go ahead and correct this or course correct it. There's another aspect in terms of AI, which is over time, I think humans are going to get intuitively better at determining when to use AI and when to not use it, or how much you can actually trust certain things and how much you don't. Like it's just going to become part of you. And in order for you to even like develop that level of intuition, one is certainly you need to start to like work better with all the AI tools and co-pilots, and the other is you do need to have like a pretty strong fundamentals. So um, now to go a level deeper into your question, I would say yes, fundamentals are important. Probably you're learning that a lot from schools and courses and other things. In terms of how do you balance this, I think the tool stack is changing. I don't know what IDEs people actually use, but like there are lots of AI first IDEs that have come up. Cursor is a great example of that. Replit is another example of that. Lots of AI first IDEs that have really come up. So getting familiar with that to actually build your projects in an AI first IDE will be a good concrete first step to really understand what is possible and what is not. So yes, a combination of the fundamentals and getting your AI first toolkit would be a good start.
Great suggestion. I use Cursor. I love it. It's fantastic, and they're releasing new features every day. So here's the pro tip for students, which is like, how do I get started? Step one, because you might be using ChatGPT to engage with code, and that's a great route. And you might be using GitHub Copilot, but the suggestion here is explore Cursor. Cursor, unfortunately, is a paid app, so it's $20 a month. Codium. Codeium. Codium is free. And that's another thing. But like what Vivek is saying, like, is take it out for a spin. Maybe do the project manually, and then build another thing using this coding tool just to kind of like compare and contrast and do it both ways, the old-fashioned geezer way
Yeah.
and the newfangled way, and start to kind of like just dip your toes in. And I think the key here is like don't boil the ocean, just baby step.
Yeah.
Download Cursor or download Codium, and then just make an app, using that, and just try it out. Try out V0 by Vercel. Go search V0 right now. It's a really cool, AI tool where you can actually implement design. All right, let's shift gears. Let's now talk about interviewing, because I think people know you're the pro at understanding what companies are looking for in interviewing. So can you talk about the evolution there? Like, can you make a prediction of what is in the next year or two or three, for internship interviews and new college grad interviews? What is the evolution there going to look like, and how should we prepare for that?
Yeah, I think if you were to generally look at the evolution of technical interview in itself, maybe 20 years ago, developers were asked questions like, hey, how many golf balls fit in a 747? Had got nothing to do with coding, but really tested or assessed your computational thinking skills, problem solving skills, and others. There's a big reward from developers. Hey, this has got nothing to do with coding. So then people moved into what is now known as the algorithm data structures kind of interview. And there's like a little bit of a revolt or undertone that you can actually go and see on Reddit. Maybe Reddit has undertones of revolt and everything, but who knows? But certainly on this one, which is like, hey, I don't use merge sort, or I don't use this graph algorithm on my day-to-day work. Why are you actually interviewing me on this? And then there's been an evolution of trying to move your interviews to resemble real world projects, at least during the interview phase, not on the take-home assessment. And I think if you were to just like look at the evolution, and if you just like plot the graph, where you're going to see is your whole interviewing or the hiring experience is going to be almost indistinguishable from your real world work. That's what it's all going. So that's the direction. And I think in terms of the order of operation or the sequencing in which this is actually going to happen is likely the following. You're going to see the interviewing process for the senior engineers resemble real world work first, like very soon. And we're already seeing that happen, which means like the interviewing questions have changed to more like, here is a code repo, here is a bug, how would you actually go and fix it? Customers are getting comfortable with even like giving them AI tools and others. And so that's where it's going to happen first. And then you're going to start to see that trickle down into juniors during the interviewing phase on it. In terms of the take-home assessment, which is predominantly used mostly in the early career to junior, seniors don't generally do take-home assessments because, I don't know, maybe they have like a big ego, like, why are you testing me and kind of things, but like whatever. On the early career to junior, in terms of the take-home, I do think it's going to change to become more and more real world, but the change would be much slower than we anticipate. Whenever we talk to customers, customers are more interested in understanding the fundamentals of computer science from this cohort. And I think they're more concerned with the usage of AI tools in this process, which is, hey, you are going to get an AI assisted copilot when you come to work. Maybe we'll even like give that to you during the interview when the hiring manager or the engineering manager is looking at you and your pair programming that. But for take home, I would really recommend or prefer not to use any kind of AI tools. And because I really want to test your fundamentals of computer science without any AI knowledge. And so what we're starting to see is a much is the problem statements and the structure of the take-home assessments for junior remaining pretty much the same, but with a higher degree of sensitivity to plagiarism and proctoring and other aspects of it, where like discouraging the use of AI tools in the setup. Like I mentioned, I do think that will change, but I think the change in this cohort or in this mode will happen much slower than what we all expect.
And so, you know, what should I as a student do to prepare? Because like I still have to grind leak code probably. So that part of my prep, at least in the next 6 months or a year, um, you know, and I want to acknowledge, and not all companies use leak code style questions, right? I don't know
Yeah.
what, do you know the percentage by chance of like, you know, an internship? Like, what would you guess? Like, is it 75%? Is it 50%? Is it 90% who
It's
use like
probably
leak code?
it's probably closer to the 75% in terms of the traditional algorithm data structure. Like I mentioned, I think it was much larger like a couple of years back, but that transition is slow. It's certainly much slower than what you would actually see as you become more senior. In terms of like the real prep, we're this may sound like an advertisement, but I'm just like this was the top of mind. We have actually built an AI interviewer, a mock interviewer, um, and this is one of those examples of things that was not possible before that you can actually do right now. It's actually available for free at Hackerrank. You can go log in and try this out, or you can send a note to support@hackerrank.com. Yeah, feel free to send it, and like we'll actually activate that for you. And you can go practice with an AI interviewer who's actually going to give you only hints, not going to give you the code and work through it. So practicing that, certainly practicing lead code, certainly trying to understand the fundamentals to be really good, taking a lot of practice assessments before you take the real one. Those are some of the things. I think maybe people will be familiar with Gail Lackman, who wrote the Cracking the Code interview. She's actually coming up with a sequel. We're actually going to host like a book launch conference of sort on Hackerrank, so you can stay tuned for that. Like, so practicing some of the challenges or questions there. Those are some of the top things in my mind.
Okay. Well, your support team might not like this, but like, so I just want to review this because there's an exciting, the interesting new free HackerRank, you know, thing that they can trial. They go to hackerrank.com. And if I'm logged in, what do they say to the support? Like, what do they say exactly to get this feature activated?
You can activate the new AI mock interview feature for me. I just heard it from Vivek in the conference. Yeah, do it.
All right, so you got support@hackerrank.com.
Yeah.
Poor support. You should probably send them an email telling them, warning them. But they want you can try this AI, you know, mock interview feature, which sounds really interesting. So I think that let me think here. We're right about that time that we're going to go to Q&A. So maybe Bobby, we should make that shift now.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, both of you. Vivek, first of all, giving us some insight, and Tim helping draw this conversation to where we're at right now. We have our first question that came in, and it's really talking about software engineers developing prioritized skills for the next 5 years in AI, and what would they be if either of you could answer?
The rate at which AI is developing, 5 years, I don't know what kind of capabilities that AI thing will have. Here's what I would say. There's a common denominator of skills that I think will always be valuable in the long term. And here are they in no particular order. The first one is to truly understand the problem that you're trying to solve for your customer. I mean, ultimately, what is engineering? Engineering is trying to solve a problem for the customer, and software engineering is just like doing it through software. So the first important skill for any engineer would be to really understand the problem that you're trying to solve for the user in as much of clarity as possible. The second one is ability to then decompose the problem into multiple sub items. And the third one is to go ahead and make sure that you can implement this in the most robust way possible. These are like some very core fundamental skills. And AI is going to allow you to elevate or enhance in each of these aspects. So understanding getting better and sharper on the fundamentals and making sure that you're always in the frontier of using AI tools to develop a sense of intuition on where you can use it, where you can't use it, what is it good, what is not good as new models come up, as new IDEs come up. I think the combination of these two things is what will likely stand the test of time.
And, I'm going to answer because I want to steal Vivek's answer from earlier, but I just want to double click on it because I like to make things like really simple, right? Which is, I think in the next 5 years, it's still Vivek's answer. It's still, which is like, how do I Iron Man? How do I Tony Stark this LLM or this AI, and how do I code practically in it? Which is going to be a combination of fundamentals and this new way of programming, which is going to be a lot of English speaking. But here's what's Vivek's solution, which I 100% agree with. Go and download Cursor or V0 and try to build something. You're going to find out really quickly it actually makes all kinds of it won't work the first time. You'll say, hey, make me a clone of Hackerrank, and it will have bugs, it won't work. And I don't think you need to do anything special to practice your fundamentals because you're going to have to apply your fundamentals right away because it's not going to work. Go to V0, which is super cool, by the way. Go to V0, have it implement a mock, and you're going to say, oh, man, well, I got like 75% of the way there. And you need to kind of like, you need a Tony Stark and be like, oh, try this. Remember how many times he worked with Jarvis to get Iron Man? There's this like back and forth. And so what you think you need to develop as an engineer via your fundamental skills is your bullshit meter for AI, because when AI starts going off the rails, you have to be able to smell it. So one, I'll leave with a final tip, which is like when you have the AI do something, don't say, hey, how do I do authentication for this app? Say, hey, AI, give me 3 options for implementing authentication in this system right now. And so, and give me the pros and cons. So when you do that, then you start to apply your fundamentals. You start to be like, okay, well, oh, okay, I could use Passport, I could use Okta, I could deal with myself. Oh, what are the trade-offs? So that's the final tip I'll say. Do Vivek's solution where you try to build stuff with AI. You'll find the edges really quickly. You'll find that it is awesome. I never want to code without AI again, but it's also like it's deeply flawed still, and it's deeply limited in a lot of ways still. And you'll have to bring your fundamentals to bear to actually have it do what you want it to do. So sorry, Vivek, for stealing your answer, but I want to keep focused, which is like just do that. Keep on doing that.
Yeah, completely makes sense. Yeah.
And the next question up is actually going to give Vivek and both you, Tim, also a chance to elaborate a little bit more. And more specifically, when I'm thinking about when I'm hearing the engaging potential that having AI inside of the interview process is me showcasing how I'm using this tool. The IDE is normally the way that we showcase that tool, but more specifically, AI potentially could be. What do you all feel would be something that would be very noteworthy in terms of showcasing the skill, utilizing the tool called AI during the interview process, or maybe even in an online assessment?
Sorry, what is the skill that you would want to focus, you'd want to showcase during an online assessment with AI? Is that the question?
Yeah, I would say definitely.
I think I think again, like online assessments using AI, it's not going to happen soon. I do think it's going to be much slower in terms of the slower transition than what we think. But some of the early adopters who are using AI in online assessments, even the type of questions are very different. And again, this is what I mentioned, like, whenever we think about the future, we always think about the current context and then like superimpose like the technology and what can happen when like, your core fundamentals are different. So let me actually give you an example. So today, if you were to think about an online assessment, it has very rigid spec, very rigid constraints, very clear answer on whether you got it right or wrong. For a small set of customers who are embracing AI in online assessments, it's literally the opposite. You have a very open-ended problem. You don't have a rigid spec. It can have multiple different solutions, and you're actually just evaluating how this person works with AI to go ahead and solve the problem. So even the whole way of how you would think about a problem and interview completely changes in the new landscape. So yeah, I think it's going to be a slower transition, but we're going to start to see that see that maybe over like 2 to 3 years, but not in the immediate term.
Awesome, awesome. And thank you so much for that insights. I do have another question for you, Vivek. This one's more specifically around what are the critical skills that you're looking for when developing a team as a CEO? And what can students be preparing themselves and more or less to achieve those goals?
I think it certainly varies. This is certainly a common denominator of skill sets or values that we look for in every team member at Hackerrank. We've codified that in terms of core values, and we really think about our core values not just as posters on the wall, but something that we really want to embody within the organization. So that's probably one common denominator. But then I'll answer the question more specific to students. And this answer might sound really flippant or even like simple, whatever. But this is true, which is I think there are like two really high, two really strong skills that you can develop. One is a very high degree of reliability, which is to say that if you're going to say something, and if you're going to say that you're going to do something, just do it. And if you're going to show up, like show up on time. Like if you're going to if you're going to say that you're going to get something done, like you have to go and get something done. That's like one is like very, very high reliability. The second one is, and again, it's a very simple hack. Go to your manager and ask, what can you take off their plate? It's a very simple thing. What can I take off your plate? And when you actually take something off their plate, firstly, you're allowing your manager to work at a higher degree of abstraction, but you're also automatically expanding scope. A lot of people, when they think about like career progression and things on those lines, think of like, hey, they go and search for career ladders that will actually tell you, hey, this is what you need to do at IC2, IC3, whatever. Yeah, those things are okay, but I've never really been a fan of that. The simplest way to grow your career is to just like continue to take more of from your manager's plate and like expand your scope. So really, if you do these two things, I'm highly reliable, and I will just take care of the thing that you don't want to, or you're full. That is like probably the best way to continue to grow in your career.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually have a question for Tim here. With the partners that we have, what are you seeing in terms of utilization of AI is starting to become more commonly mentioned by the partners that we engage with, including with Hackerrank?
Utilization of AI in the context of interviewing, or utilization of AI in the context of a software developer?
As a software developer.
You know, it's widespread, but it's also not as fast as you would think. Like a lot of us has been coding one way for a long time. And I think that right now it's broad in the sense that everyone's probably using ChatGPT as like kind of a sounding board and a rubber duck, and maybe like doing some limited code generation or limited test generation. But the vision that Vivek has, where like all of our schlep work is being done, all of a sudden our documentation is all complete, our test coverage is going to the moon. That is actually happening slower because it's actually non-trivial to use these AI tools. So they're still early generation. I mean, they're awesome, by the way, but it takes a decent amount of skill and exploration to do it. So I would say it's widespread, but it's only deep, I feel like, in smaller pockets right now. I think that's going to change in a few years. And I think, by the way, I still meet engineers today who are like, I can code this. It's not really helping me code. I'm like, you're not using it right. But that actually is a fairly widespread idea right now. So I think in 5 years they're going to face trouble because all these young pups are going to be eating their lunch and producing 100 times as much stuff. So widespread, but it's still fairly early. It's still fairly early, and that's why you can get ahead of things by like starting to learn the tools now, their strengths, their weaknesses, how really to utilize it.
Awesome, awesome. And thank you so much for that insight. We're getting to our last question here, and I'm going to get Vivek to close us out in terms of giving, I say actually both of you all. So Vivek up first, but giving the cohorts, the students, your top advice for them as they're going on their journey and pursuing, careers in this field of engineering and technology.
Top advice. Care more about the work and the people than your compensation and title in your early parts of your career. So interesting work and smart people matters way more. You said top, I have like probably a few. Second is try to optimize for any company that offers in-person working than remote. Remote isn't the greatest way to actually go ahead and like learn in your early career. Um, and the other one is, yeah, just like make sure that you're reliable and you're able to take things off from your manager's plate. Those are like some of the ways that you can really optimize for a very steep slope early in your career, which is going to help.
Awesome. And Tim?
I think that we're all ambitious here as a student group, right? And I think, Vivek, Bobby, and I are also still ambitious, right? And we have goals. We actually know what to do. Vivek's told you, and I think it's a great idea. He's told you what to do. But here, I want to acknowledge something that we have as humans, which is when we go alone, we fail. How many of you here have made a New Year's resolution before? How have those gone? Have you succeeded in all of your New Year's resolutions? Have you abandoned making them entirely because everyone knows they don't work? So it's kind of weird, right? Like I have a goal. This is not the resolution that the school forced on me. My parents didn't force me. I had this goal. I want to work at Amazon. I want to start a company, and I know what I need to do. I need to do this thing. And then what happens? Fear, procrastination, probably due to fear, hard to get started, right? So like we all, 100% of us tend to fail when we set an individual goal and pursue it individually. So what I've always done, and I'm the worst, man, I'm the worst procrastinator on the face of the planet. Like shout out to the procrastinators out there. Anyone with me? I know what I need to do to reach my goal. I just need to take those steps, but I don't do it. Right. And so I think here's what will not work. Saying to yourself, oh, you jerk, do better next week. I'm gonna redouble my. You know what's gonna happen next week? The exact same thing's gonna happen. I predict. Well, that's maybe I'm just telling you more about myself than you all right now, but I'm probably gonna fail next week too. So you have to change the fundamental way that you're pursuing your goals. The thing that worked for me is I do really well with forcing functions. So for example, signing up for a hackathon. Like, is anyone here actually going to go and download Codium or Cursor or V0? I think you want to, but then how many of you will actually go do it? So sign up for a hackathon. It's a forcing function. And then I'm in the hackathon anyway, and I'm like, oh, well, I might as well use that IDE that Vivek was talking about, give it a try, right? And do it with a group. So like what I did back in the day is I found, can I say this word still? I found the nerdiest guy in the class. I kind of peeped him, and I was like, okay, you're gonna be my best friend. So now every time you study, I'm gonna study. We're gonna study together. So like that idea of, because I'll wind this up by saying like, I flake on myself all day long. Like if I'll set a goal, I'll say I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna go study, I'm gonna go grind leak code, and I'll flake on myself all day long. But if I make a commitment with a friend who also has a similar goal, and we set a time and a schedule, I'm very, at least for me, I don't really flake on other people. So I won't do that. So that's my advice, my closing advice, which is like, if things are not working for you right now, if things are working for you now, great. Ignore everything I just said. But if you're not meeting your expectations for your goals, you have to change the way you're pursuing it. And not just by saying, hey, just do better, kid. You have to think about how to set up an environment and a community and a group for you to be successful. Anyway, that's my closing piece of advice.
Wow. That's so amazing. And I want to say thank you to both of you again for really enlightening the students, the cohorts here, the attendees of the EES 2024. This is our opening keynote. This is our last day, day 3. So I know we're getting a little bit close to the end, but remember what I talked about at the beginning? You can go and rewatch all of the pre-recorded, but also this session here, because I heard some gems from Vivek, and I definitely want to encourage you all to listen in. Utilize these tools, including AI, for you to become efficient and definitely be ready for the next 5 years, because the game is changing for sure. I definitely want to give you all a round of applause for being here. So inside the chat, send a thank you to our guests, Vivek and also Tim. Send some love to your peers and definitely those that are here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for this last hour or so. But after the session here, you'll get a feedback survey. Remember how important feedback is, right? We want to know what we could do better and definitely all the things that we've been doing great. So definitely let us know. And yeah, I'm your host, Bobby D. I'll check you out in the lounge. I'll see you in other sessions. Holla at your boy. It's Bobby D.
Thank you, Bobby.